You have undoubtedly heard of the four great beauties of ancient China. 四大美女. They were Diao Chan, Wang Zhaojun, Xi Shi, and Yang Guifei. Wait, wasn't Yang Guifei a plump beauty? Let's try that again. Oh yeah, maybe something more like that. She's actually pretty cute. I could totally fall in love with her. And she was said to be so beautiful and talented that she took all of Emperor Xuanzong of Tang's attention, and he thus neglected the affairs of state, causing China to be ravaged by the Anlushan rebellion and the golden age of the Tang to end. Ultimately, the emperor's troops forced her to commit suicide to save the country, leaving the emperor depressed for the rest of his life. But that is not what we are talking about today. Beautiful women are too dangerous, as you can see. By contrast, in ancient China, ugly women, it seems, were treasured just as much as attractive women. There is even a saying, 家有丑妻是宝, or an ugly wife is a treasure at home. You see, there are four feminine virtues of ancient China. 妇德, or a woman's morals, which included the observance of chastity, respect for parents, and being gentle and caring. Then there was 妇言, or a woman's speech, saying things appropriate for the situation, not cursing or being vulgar, and expressing things in a kind way to maintain harmony in the family. Then there was 妇容, or a woman's appearance, which stressed as much about presenting oneself in a nice way as it did about having naturally good looks. And finally, 妇功, a woman's skills, which included things like weaving, embroidery, cooking, etc. But also many women had other skills like music, strategy, astronomy, or even knowledge of the affairs of state. As you can see, appearance is only one of the four, and many women excelled at the other three. The saying, an ugly wife is a treasure at home, comes from the great Chinese general Zhuge Liang, who was approached by the scholar Huang Chanyan, who said, I hear my lord is looking for a wife. I have an ugly daughter. She has yellow hair and a dark complexion, but she is as talented as you. Zhuge Liang then went and really married the girl for her talent rather than her looks, and that girl is now referred to as Lady Huang, and she is thought to have supported Zhuge Liang throughout his military career. And thus, throughout Chinese history, it has become a tradition to celebrate ugly but talented Chinese women. Now, the Chinese really love making lists of stuff. You have the 4 great inventions, the 5 tiger generals, the 4 great novels, and just like you have the 4 great beauties, or 四大美女, there is a list of 四大丑女, or the 4 great uglies. Now, were these like those ugly women on TV shows that are just dressed up with like glasses, braces, messy hair to make them look ugly, like Ugly Betty, who looks stunning once she sorts herself out? Yes, left and right are the same person. Well, I don't know, but let's find out more about them. This is the story of China's 4 great ugly women. Number 1, Moroo. So Moroo was the Yellow Emperor's lowest ranking concubine. Living in around 2700 BC, she supposedly had a squarish face, a butch figure, and a dark complexion. This is about as ugly as I could get her to look with AI. Maybe it's a case of Ugly Betty. She was at worst average looking, but considered ugly compared to the emperor's other concubines, who I assume would be the most beautiful women of the day with typical Chinese beauty standards. The Tang Dynasty book Diao Yu Ji, in the chapter Chou Ren Pian, or Ugly People volume, I guess that's kind of the ancient Chinese version of the website mingers.com. Anyone remember that site? It was really big in the early 2000s. Anyway, it describes her appearance like this: a forehead like a hammer and a frown, a body like a box, and a dark complexion. Here is another mock-up of her I found online. I guess they got the frown and the dark complexion, but she still doesn't look that ugly. Here's another one, and okay, that one's a bit more disturbing to look at. Apparently, the Yellow Emperor used her face to ward off evil spirits, so he did marry her for her looks, but in a negative sense. And there were even masks made in ancient times to ward off ghosts said to be based on her appearance. But actually, jokes aside, in reality, the Yellow Emperor supposedly married her to discourage the practice of qianghun, or kidnapping a good-looking woman to marry. And he said this: those who value only beauty and don't value virtue, that is not real beauty. One who values virtue and takes lust lightly, that is a truly worthy person. And it seems the Yellow Emperor chose correctly, since other historical books record Lady Moroo having, quote, a hideous appearance but bountiful virtue. Now, Lady Moroo was quite brilliant. She is said to have invented the mirror, which is kind of counterintuitive since her appearance wasn't something she would probably want to remind herself of.
Magic mirror on the wall, Who is the fairest one of all?
Yeah, maybe it was a magic mirror, or more likely, she needed it because she wanted to do makeup to hide, well, this. Then, in addition to being an inventor, she had great management skills. The emperor sincerely trusted her, and he put her in charge of the imperial concubines' quarters in the palace. She shared a special bond with the emperor, and it's even said that the creator of Chinese characters, Cang Jie, created the character Xi, or happiness, to celebrate the joyous expressions of the Yellow Emperor and Moroo on their wedding day. The Yellow Emperor apparently said to Moroo, "Never forget to keep developing your morality and don't deviate from purity. If you can do that, how could being ugly harm anyone?" Now, Moroo is the most ancient of the four uglies. Really a mythical figure like the Yellow Emperor himself, but her story carries a moral message that has stuck with Chinese people for generations. That inner beauty that comes from qualities like morality and purity outweighs one's external appearance, and the Yellow Emperor didn't think twice about marrying her, because he recognized the inner beauty that she had. Before we move on to number 2, I want to tell you that it's really hard for us to support ourselves making cultural content. The audience for this stuff isn't as big as other niches on YouTube, but it is just so important that we preserve this traditional culture. And we are very passionate about doing it, and we'd love to devote more time to it. That is why we have just turned on channel memberships. For $4.99 a month, you can now become a China scholar. You will get special badges, we will make a special effort to reply to you when you leave a comment, and you will get early access to new videos. In the future, we hope to add a members-only live stream once we have a few more members to watch it. But most importantly, you will be supporting the preservation of traditional Chinese culture. So click the link below at the end of this video if you want to join. Number 2, Jichun. Now, Jichun, and by the way, Zhongli is her last name, okay? It's one of those 2-character surnames. Jichun lived in the state of Qi in the Warring States period, which lasted from 475 to 221 BC. She was around during the time of Qi Xuan Wang, or King Xuan of Qi, who lived from about 350 to 301 BC. We'll get back to the king later because this story involves him too, but Jichun's looks are recorded like this in Li Lianyu Zhuan, or biographies of exemplary women. She was ugly without equal. She had a forehead like a bowl, deep eye sockets. She had a large body and big joints, a nose that angled upwards, and an Adam's apple. She was fat with little hair. She was bent at the waist and her chest stuck out. Her skin was dark. At the age of 40, she still wasn't married. That makes her sound horrific. After inputting that description into an AI, I got this. I think they missed the dark eyes and the nose isn't as pig-like as I would have liked, but it's a pretty good idea of what she might have looked like. Here's another portrayal from a TV show. But despite her hideous looks, Jichun has an incredible story. Since she was 40 and not married, she wasn't content with being an aging cat lady. So she marched right up to King Xuan's palace gate and said to the gatekeeper, "I am an unmarried old maid from the state of Qi. I have heard of the king's saintly virtues, so I'm willing to enter the palace to serve the king. Here I humbly request the king's consent." Now, this gatekeeper didn't just let her in. No. He went and told the king, who was busy in his luxurious 5-story tower called Jiantai, drinking with his concubines who were hanging off his every word, laughing at all his jokes. When the gatekeeper told the king, who was outside, everyone laughed, thinking that that was what the king would do. But for some reason, the king was actually intrigued, and he invited Jichun in. He quizzed her on why she thought he would be willing to marry a 40-year-old cat lady, and asked if maybe she had some amazing talent. She told him she had a supernormal ability to make herself invisible and demonstrated the skill to the king. Okay, that came out of nowhere. Ancient China was wild, but it is recorded in the classical texts. Could they have meant she was just really good at hide and seek? I don't know. Anyway, understandably, the king wanted to learn this magic art, but she wouldn't teach him. Instead, she said, "Danger, danger," and repeated herself 4 times. The king said he was willing to hear what these 4 dangers were, and so she bravely pointed out everything wrong with the kingdom. Today in your kingdom, in the west, there is a conflict with the state of Qin, and in the south, the strong state of Chu. These 2 countries pose external dangers. Within the nation, you have treasonous officials. Many people are leaving and don't return. You are 40 years old but have no heir. You do not attend to your people, but instead favor your concubines. You honor those that you like, but neglect those that are reliable. One day, it will all collapse and the state will be unstable. This is the first danger. Then she goes on to criticize the luxurious 5-story tower. The Jiantai has 5 floors, adorned with yellow gold and white jade, gemstones, jadeite, and pearls. With ornate curtains, its construction made thousands of people suffer. That is the second danger. Then she went on, talented people are all hiding in the mountains and forests, while you are just served by people who flatter you left and right. Evil ones and liars hold power, while honest advisors cannot get near you. This is the third danger. Drinking wine until you're drunk, continuing it into the night with female musicians, actors, and officials, all laughing together. You don't observe the rights of the feudal lords, and you do not govern the country. This is the fourth danger. Now, the king could have just killed her for such insolence, but it seems he sensed her sincerity. She was genuinely worried for the country, and thus risked her life to point out his mistakes. He had a sudden realization, and it is recorded in the ancient texts that the king thus destroyed the 5-story luxury tower. He gave up the female musicians, fired the flattering officials, threw out the jade sculptures, started selecting soldiers and horses, building up government funds, opening the doors to take advice from anyone regardless of rank. He chose an auspicious day to select his heir. He got approval from his mother and made Jichun his queen. Thus, the country of Qi became peaceful. That is the power of an ugly woman. Was it really necessary to write that last line? The ancient Chinese were very direct. Anyway, through her selfless act, she saved the country and woke up the king to his degenerate ways, and it encouraged him to turn over a new leaf, taking the path of righteousness. All without looking like a Kardashian. Alright, let's move on. Number 3. Monguang. So Monguang lived in the Eastern Han Dynasty, which reigned from 25 to 220 AD. There is a description of her in the biography of her husband in the latter book of Han, or Hou Han Shu. The Meng family had a daughter. She was butch, fat, ugly, and dark-skinned. She had the strength to lift a stone mortar. She chose not to marry and was still unmarried at 30. So it seems that despite being considered not attractive and kind of manly, she did actually have suitors who recognized her virtuous nature and wanted to marry her, but she turned them all down because she really admired the integrity and conduct of this one guy in her village named Liang Hong. She told her parents about this, and news made it back to Liang Hong himself, who also had refused several marriage opportunities. It is recorded in the latter book of Han that when Liang Hong heard that she wanted to marry him, he went and married her. She prepared cloth clothes, hemp sandals, and weaved a basket for her things. When they got married, she started off wearing decorative clothes, but Liang Hong didn't speak to her for 7 days. So she kneeled down next to the bed and asked, "I have heard you are righteous and have turned down many women. I have also turned down several men. Seeing this today, I dare not ask my crime." Liang Hong replied, "I desire a woman who wears simple clothes and can live in seclusion with me in the mountains. Today your clothes are extravagant and you are wearing makeup. How could this be the wife I want?" Lady Meng replied, "I am just testing your willpower," meaning she was testing his resolve to resist glamour and luxury and do as he had originally planned, live in seclusion in the mountains away from worldly temptations. She went on, "I also have clothes for secluded living," and she then rolled her hair up into a bun, put on some simple clothes, and got started with some housework. Liang Hong was very happy, and he said, "Now you are truly my wife." And with that, he gave her a virtuous and glorious name, Monguang, or Meng the Bright. When they moved to the Wu state, Liang Hong worked for the family of Gao Bo Tong, living in small rooms to the side of the main house. Liang would pound grain every day, and every time he returned from work, his wife would have prepared a meal for him. She didn't dare to look directly at him as she handed him the tray. Instead, she lifted the tray up to her eyebrows. And this phrase, lifting the tray up to one's eyebrows, or 举案齐眉, has become a Chinese 4-character saying or 成语, describing mutual respect between husband and wife. And Monguang is remembered as a virtuous, ugly woman, sharing with her husband a mutual wish to cast off the desires of the human world and lead a simple life of seclusion in keeping with the tradition of self-cultivation in China. Alright, let's now move on to our final great ugly woman. Number 4, Ransu. Now, Ransu, or just Ranshi, was the wife of Xu Yun, who was one of Cao Wei's high-level officials during the Three Kingdoms period. There isn't much of a description in the classic texts of her exact appearance. All I can find is this. She was Xu Yun's wife and the daughter of the commander of the guards Ran. She was virtuous like her sister, but grotesquely ugly. Here is a story from her wedding night. After the marriage ceremony, which involved lifting the veil, and that would be the first time Xu Yun would have seen her, Xu Yun did not return to the room. His family members were worried. One of Xu Yun's guests approached. His wife, Ransu, had a maid to go and see who it was. The maid came back and said that it was Xu Yun's friend Heng Liang, who also went by the name of Heng Fan. Ransu said, "Don't worry, Heng Fan will definitely urge him to come back in." As expected, Heng Fan said, "The Ran family giving you their ugly daughter to marry must have some meaning to it. You should inquire about that." So Xu Yun went back in. He saw his wife and wanted to leave. His wife anticipated that if he left again, he wouldn't come back and thus grabbed him and stopped him in his tracks. Xu Yun then asked, "Women have 4 virtues. Which of those 4 do you have?" His wife replied, "Of the 4, I lack only an attractive appearance. Scholars have 100 requirements to live by. How many do you follow?" He replied, "All of them." His wife then said, "Husband, of the 100 requirements, virtue is first, but you are fond of lust and not fond of virtue. How could you be following all of them?" Xu Yun suddenly felt ashamed, and they developed a mutual respect for each other. And Ransu really cared for her husband and didn't overreact when things were hard. There was one time when he was arrested for violating a policy in his work. All of the other family members were crying, but Ransu simply said, "Don't worry, he will get out soon," and she started preparing rice congee for him, and sure enough, he came home. Records show she was level-headed in many other similar situations and always acted with patience, selflessness, and virtue. There are more stories that we could tell about her, but this video is getting long. So to summarize, it really was true what she had said on her wedding night. Apart from not having a pleasant appearance, she really did possess all of the other traditional virtues that a woman should have. And there you have it, guys, China's 4 great ugly women. Now, in ancient China, of course, beauty was treasured too. After all, we do have the 4 great beautiful women. But it was only one of 4 female virtues, and it wasn't to be viewed as more important than the other 3. China's entire society was based on the concept of self-cultivation, and in many classical texts that we have read, you can see that marrying an ugly woman often had profound reasons behind it. And as the man gives up the attachment to physical appearance, he starts to see the inner beauty present in his wife's virtuous conduct. So what do you think? Guys in the audience, would you marry an ugly woman? Leave your comments below. If you want to join as a member and support us creating this content, do click the join button down below. If you've not totally decided you want to join yet, why not subscribe and see how you like our content? Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.